Hey, what's going on? Coach Luka here. Today I'm going to go over and like break down the coaching, the cues, some philosophies behind the single leg RDL, right? Which is a phenomenal exercise. I mean, obviously single leg work is very, very important to performance, to health, to hip health, to single leg health, to, I would say leveling out asymmetries, right? Meaning one leg stronger than the other, tighter than the other, so on and so forth. But what tends to happen, like this is actually a very, very challenging exercise, like meaning it's a very challenging exercise from a standpoint of, the stability of the foot and the hip. And when you see people do it, it becomes like, let's just say it doesn't become like, it takes away from what we actually want to get out of the exercise, which is quality form, right? Because when you look at the Romanian deadlift, okay, right here with 2 feet, what is a single leg RDL? Well, essentially, we want to have everything equal out, and then this leg comes out. But the thing is, and you can see with body weight, right, is challenging, maybe even more challenging than with weight. We'll talk about this, right? Everything is equal, right? Then when that leg comes in, right? But now we're standing on one leg. And what tends to happen a lot of times is like as soon as you remove that stability of 2 legs, this hip will shift, it'll rotate, will round, right? There's a lot of stuff that starts happening. So I wanted to go over coaching cues, regressions, progressions. Actually, we're not going to touch on too many progressions, but yeah, we will. We'll actually go over some progressions too, on how to do this successfully, drills that you can work on to make it better. And there's a couple of things. First of all, right, like we're always telling our coaching clients, if you can't be stable on one leg, it's very difficult to produce force, right? So if, we'll do drills such as, hey, knee up and just stand on one leg. Can you get this past 90? Do you see a lot of shaking? Can people stabilize? If you can't stabilize on one leg, it's actually for the brain, it's like, whoa, I'm not gonna produce a lot of force because you're not stable, so that's dangerous, right? So you cannot produce as much force on that single leg if you don't have stability. So there's a lot of reasons why it's very, very important, right? It's very important for sports performance. It's very important for just people in general to be able to have healthy hips, to have feet that are stable, to be able to catch themselves if they're falling, to get more muscle activation, right? There's a reason why if you stand on a Bosu ball and try to do your heaviest squat, you're not gonna get anywhere close to it, right? Because it's unstable, right? But if you're standing on one leg and you can't stabilize, that's unstable too, and your brain's not gonna allow your nervous system to produce as much force. So there's a lot of great, let's say reasons why we want to do this. Now, prerequisites. So I'm gonna go and just start kind of coaching as if I'm just coaching you and you're here at Vigor, right? If you have good mobility, meaning you can get into this position, right? I like to do, I would say, teach the single leg RDL with this regression, right? This is actually something that we'll start with almost everybody. We'll get pro athletes and man, like they won't be able to do it. So we'll start here. So imagine, this is why I love the valslide for this drill, because I can legitimately set up the exact same position as an actual RDL would be. So watch this, right? So if I was here with 2 and I'm just sliding back, and we'd call this an anterior lunge, right? I'd slide this back to where if you take a camera, shot me in half, I would look like I'm in a deadlift in this RDL position, okay? So the valslide, what it allows is that we can't cheat much and produce too much force by pushing into that back leg. So we really want people to feel this front leg and feel the feeling that they would have if, to get the hamstring, the glute. And so the other thing too is people that don't have great stability now, we can move this back foot, right? So if you look at my back foot here, right? This is really close, but I can even move it a little further out and give myself more stability. So that's why this is a great drill, because now I can coach up, and just being in this position, by the way, is like tiring my legs out like crazy. The legs yesterday. So now, but I can still ask for, okay, I want that, we'll see the logo on the chest, right? Rip those clavicles apart from each other. I want to feel my whole foot. Keep this long spine, so I want to have, let's say that neutral spine. And from here, I'm going to pull those shoulder blades into my armpits, get nice and tense, squeeze and drive through that front foot and come back up, okay? So now once again, this is like what I call an octopus foot, okay? Octopus foot meaning it's just kind of like a tentacle, right? It's just barely giving some balance to this. We'd go back in the same way, eccentrically. Get nice and tight. And eccentrically control, load it down, okay? Now, here's the thing, okay? If somebody doesn't have mobility, this is still a great drill, but we may lift these kettlebells up on blocks, right? So they'd only have to get to right about here. We can regress that pattern and just shorten it up, and they're still training, that single leg, they're still training that hinge pattern. It doesn't have to be just one way. The reason why I love kettlebells is because they have these, if this was a dumbbell, you'd have to grab it here. Kettlebells, you can grab them higher, so you don't have to go as low, which is great. The other thing that's great about bells and the valslide and this regression of the anterior lunge is, number one, that like I can reset myself at the bottom, okay? Because once again, people, like their hips will get wacky, right? Meaning wacky that like they'll rotate, now their low back's working. But if I'm here, I can find that position where, okay, I'm in a good place, okay, cool. Okay, I'm controlling it down. But then maybe I'm losing my space a little bit. Okay, cool, reset my hips. There we go. Now I'm back to neutral. And control it back down, okay? And I love also the eccentric part of this too. So imagine that, you know, for a lot of people, one way is hard than another. So controlling that down part is we could do with the valslide where we're lifting it up, right? With 2, and now just that down part, we can do a super slow 5, 4, feel that whole foot, 3, 2, 1, slide back in, reset everything, and repeat, right? And notice that we're doing things with 2 bells, okay? Because as soon as you go, you'll see a lot of these drills, I would say, going with just 1 bell, but that now that loads the core up. So meaning I could be here. So I would say the easier version of 1 bell is keeping it on the same side as the leg. Abs engaged here, okay? The harder version is an offset on the other side because now I have all this rotary force and my abs have to stabilize this. So it's much harder, much harder. And so here's the thing. You want to progress these drills in a systematic and strategic and kind of common sense way, right? So double body weight is very, very hard. It's actually adding weight is easier than body weight, right? Because if you're doing this, or at least with single leg here, right? Because now it's harder to stabilize. Having weight to create some tension a lot of times will help people. So we'll go with two bells first and have this valslide regression, okay? From here, what we're gonna start doing and working, which is great, is that like there's a lot of ways that you can kind of progress and regress this. But think about it, if we're doing a 2-way up, okay? So if I'm doing a 2-way up and I'm sliding back down, at a certain point in time, so for instance, as I'm going down, at that bottom position, I can just lift this leg up and now hold. 1, 2, boom, and I slide it back up if the slider was there or even without it, right? So, and remember, you don't need a slider. We have a lot of classes, and although we have enough sliders, another strategy is just keeping that foot down on the ground. Meaning, keeping the foot down on the ground, like touching the ground, giving you tactile feedback, and then once you get to this position, you just lift and stabilize, okay? So the way that this would look like, if I was doing it on the negative, I'm feeling that foot, I'm sitting back into that hip, I'm still feeling that foot, feeling glute, feeling hamstring, and now lift. 1, 2, and then I could drive back through, or I could put the foot back down and get into that position. So once again, notice how we're breaking the movement down and taking little chunks to be able to, I would say, build it up in a proper way. Because one of the things you'll see, the reason why I have this roller here too, is the hip slipping out, right? So meaning my hip slipping out is when you go into the RDL, the hip pops out, right? Boom. So how can I prevent that from happening? Well, I'm gonna give myself some feedback here, right? And once again, you might have to see, because as soon as like if I hip pops out too much, it's gonna bump this roller. So I'm gonna put it super close to my body here, right? And if I was here in this position, say I'm doing it with the valslide again, I wanna make sure I have some feedback. And I'm going down, I'm gonna let my hip slip out. Okay? So this would be obviously more of a coaching in a semi-private one-on-one setting, but it gives me some feedback so that I'm not letting that hip slip out, okay? Because once again, we want to teach things like like we want to shoot for perfection. We're not going to get it, but we want to shoot for those perfect reps. Because if we shoot for those perfect reps, guess what? You know what I mean? Like we're going to get much, much better standards of excellence when it comes to that. Okay, from here, another thing about the single leg RDL that, and once again, like when you're seeing all these cues, the goal is never to like throw them all at once at the person. You're looking at what's going on with this person, right? And one of the things that's gonna happen when you're doing single leg RDLs, right? So if I'm in this position, is that people aren't gonna pack their lats down and get a good position here, right? They're gonna have them slipped out. So notice the difference. This is gonna be a crappier rep. Notice my shoulder blades, they're not squeezing together. They're sloppy, right? So the way we fix that, which is a great drill, is to get a band under the lat. Because the thing is, if the lat is not gonna be squeezing, the band's gonna fall out. And once again, for clients, for you, this is great tactile feedback. Like you'll know whether you're on track, whether you're on point with this so that you don't let it go. So now when I'm in this down position, notice like I have to really squeeze that, right? So I'm just gonna do an anterior lunge here. I have to think about it, right? If it's not squeezing, I'm not letting go. I mean, if it's squeezing, I'm not letting go. I have to really think about that. I'm really squeezing that lat. So same thing, right? If I was top down here, doing a lot of stuff on the left leg, getting tired. Keeping that lat packed, keeping that lat packed. Right? Great, great drill that's gonna help with keeping that in. And you might even do it, like I said, on both sides here. If you were doing a single arm RDL, you'd be doing a very, very similar thing with that, right? But the key is, see, the key, guys, is to be able to have all those things that you would in a regular deadlift be happening. Like, so in a regular deadlift, obviously, because you have two legs, bilateral, you're not gonna get these rotations, right? So you want to be leveled out. Like my chest should be opened up. Okay, when I'm grabbing these bells, core is engaged, spine is long, right? So I have a long spine, and everything is happening in the same way, except that I'm on a single leg. Okay, couple of things. Lead. Now I'm gonna do this without weight, meaning I'm gonna do this without weight as far as coaching cues. You wanna lead with the hip, right? Because in a single leg RDL, a lot of times it happens that people are just bending over. So right now, see, I'm just bending over versus I'm driving back with my hip, right? So I'm pushing my hip back, 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 and I'm leading with that. Now, depending on a person's mobility, right? I like to drive this heel back and punch back with the heel because this is a good cue. So I'm gonna punch back, punch back, punch back, punch back, punch back. Like even if I can lock it out, if you have that mobility, if your hamstring is tight, you can keep this bent, right? But now I'm pushing my knee back and then driving and feeling my whole foot. So I'm feeling my whole foot. I got a long spine, packed chin, push through that ground. And what I mean by feeling the whole foot is that little toe, big toe, heel. It's like a tripod, right? I'm not feeling just the heel my toes aren't coming off the ground, one side is not rolling. If I feel my whole foot, it's gonna align and activate more of my, I would say, femur and the hip in the place it's supposed to be. Okay, so think about that, like as far as my hip is leading the movement versus my chest versus my neck, versus, because if your chest or your neck, now I'm just gonna bend. Now I'm just bending over, right? Versus if I'm driving my heel or my knee back, now I have this leading, right? And when I drive that back, I feel a big stretch in my hamstring and my glute. I'm still keeping my chest open, my chin packed, and feel my whole foot and drive through, okay? I also like, this is just a little kind of cue on some of this stuff. When you drive through, if possible, I like to get that knee just a little bit up, because what's gonna happen, it's gonna actually make this glute fire more, okay, to stabilize. So those are some of the, I would say, coaching cues and drills when it comes to that single leg RDL. Now, one of the things that like we do in warm-ups, so think about this. If you're going to do a single leg RDL in your training session, we'll do a single leg RDL body weight in warm-ups. So this is the exact drill we do in group training warm-ups, team training, semi-privates. It's just an airplane. And we kind of coach it just like the body weight lunge that, I would say RDL that I was showing you guys, is if people can't go into like this airplane unsupported, and then we'll get to this position and we will just hold it for 5 seconds, breathe, feel that whole foot, making sure the hips are aligned with the floor, and then drive up, okay? And then repeat. And it's a great way, because one of the things you're gonna see, happen a lot is when people go into this position, their hips are gonna open up, okay? So now, like, it's like, okay, cool, I can stabilize, but really they're not level with the floor, okay? So what it does is it helps them work on that. If they can't keep that foot off the ground, we can still be here, and they can just keep tapping it, right? Like, so just tap the foot, right? Tap the foot. They can come back up, they can slide back, feel that foot, and just pause and hold, right? So that is a fantastic, like I said, warm-up drill where we're just working. What are we doing? Like, we're getting a little bit of a hamstring stretch, glute activation, we're getting foot stability, we're getting hip stability, we're getting a lot of these drills that are working on this. Now, they're a little bit more advanced. This is a great drill from Dr. Stuart McGill that's important for hip and low back health. It's called the airplane, where we're rotating this. Now, I'm gonna show this, guys, to you. This is advanced, and I'll show you the regression because I'm just gonna use this roller support. We can use the wall of support as well. But this is something I was doing a lot of and continue to do for my low back health, because I had some serious back injuries. And that is, now as I go down into this RDL position, okay? Imagine my belly button is straight currently. Now I'm going to turn that belly button in that way. And now, while keeping my foot the same place, I'm gonna turn the belly button out. Like, and if you have your hands here, it'll be like an airplane, right? This is very challenging. Obviously, this foot is tired as well. I'm opening up as much as I can and coming back to that same position. So essentially what I'm doing is I'm turning my belly button in and opening it up, right? Very, very, very challenging, and you want to do it at first in a slow, controlled manner. So for many people, that will be very challenging. So what you do is you give them support. Wall, rig, foam roller. So now watch, as I do this, I'm going to belly button, so you can see that kind of straight direction now. I'm going to turn this in that way, and now I'm going to open that hip up, out as much as I can. Belly button's turning this way now, and now I'm going to slowly control it back to this position and turn it in again. So my hand is basically my belly button where it's facing. So not only are we now training our foot, my foot is exhausted right now, training our foot stability, we're training our hip control and mobility. Because if your hip cannot control, imagine when we're sprinting and I'm coming here and turning in the hip and pushing in that direction, and it's internally rotating. If we can't have control in these base movements, you're gonna get a lot of force transferring through your spine, for your low back, right? Then you're gonna start having issues. Now, why did I bring up this drill in a single leg RDL? Because if you do this drill, your single leg RDL is going to get better, right? It's just going to get better, period. And once again, why do we do the airplane drill? When we have, when clients are coming in doing 3, 4, 5 days a week of, like I said, doing this drill for 4 to 5 reps, right? And being able to hold this position, guess what? The nervous system now is getting better at that super high quality movement. And now when we go to that single leg, I would say the RDL, all of a sudden, now we're able to have it be cleaner, moving in the right direction. And so when we look at that, and we talked about how in that bottom position, a lot of times this hip will open up, okay? So this will happen. The cue for this is like, okay, turn that big toe to the ground, okay? And they'll instantly feel it. They'll go like, oh, whoa, okay, now I feel my hamstring more, whoop. So turn that big toe to the ground, right? Because now it's like, okay, this is what alignment is for me. And then driving back up, okay? And to finish off, using the weights, like I said, why is body weight harder for people? Well, when you think about it, like if we have great core engagement, right, and a good posture, right, it will be a lot easier to get good position in that RDL. And so for most people in a body weight position, if their body's not trained and you got some deficiencies, it's gonna be hard to get those things activated in the right position. But if we use a weight, okay, if we use a weight, what can I do now? Like I said, we're gonna go back to the regression here. Now, I can pull that weight. Now I can feel my whole foot at the bottom. So remember, if the person couldn't get here, we'd have this elevated a little bit, right? I can feel my whole foot at the bottom, and I'm already driving my foot into the ground. So because I'm doing that, now I get feedback. Ooh, I feel my hamstring, I feel my glute. Okay, cool, now I want you to squeeze that band in between your lats. I don't have it right now, but it gives me that tactile feedback. I want you to open up the chest. I want you to squeeze those, I would say kettlebells as much as possible. Big breath into the belly. And now I want you to slowly push the ground. Okay? Or, if for instance, if you can see their foot rolling, I want you to push that big toe into the ground. Okay, cool, they're pushing that big toe. And I want you to slide back, keep tight, keep squeezing those bells, pull those lats. Right? We're using the weight to create tension, right? To pull those lats in, to keep those abs engaged, crush the bell, to keep that whole body tension, the shoulders rip apart. So we're using it to create good position. So external things, right, are a lot easier to coach. If you tell somebody with body weight, like, hey, I want you to brace your core. Some people don't understand what that is. I want you to rip your clavicles apart. Right? You can coach, but it's much easier to do it when you actually have weight. And you can kind of see how we can now progress and regress that, right? So if we look at the single leg RDL, we start with an anterior lunge, right? And like I said, on the valslide, it's phenomenal. And we're driving up from here. From there, we can do, like I said, we can go eccentric, just on the way down, controlling all the way down, foot comes back, reset, come back up. Right, we're stronger on that negative portion. Right, we can use the bottom part to create that tension. And then from there, we can build back up and go without tapping the ground, meaning having 2 bells, controlling down. And the other thing too is, like, you don't have to go all the way down. You can come to just this position right here, drive back up, right? Get good position, go just past the knee and drive back up, right? And only then do we start taking a bell away if we want to, like I said, work those rotary stability and anti-rotation and things like that, right? We don't throw that in from the get-go. And like I said, I like bells, kettlebells the most when it comes to drilling this. From there, obviously, you can go to dumbbells. Barbell is a lot more challenging for things like this. But those are just some of the coaching cues. Like I said, I try to kind of break some of these things down and understand that each individual, when you're looking at them, you start adjusting things so for them specifically and individually to get them into these positions. So use some of these drills, use some of these philosophies to improve your single leg RDL, because once again, it is a phenomenal exercise. If you want to build muscle, if you want to build strength, stability, improve your performance, like I said, it's great for deload. Like, you can really work the leg and use less load on your low back if you're having low back issues as well. So just a ton of great things here. Put it into play. Let me know if you got any questions. Let me know how it does for you, and I'll see you next time.